Hey, welcome to my channel. I've been dealing with so many audio issues. Like you hear the echoes there. That's the best I can find right now. I've isolated. Excuse me. I've isolated. Like I have my laptop. I have a Logitech Pro Stream, whatever it is, and it has a really nice like a speaker on it and like a mic. And to isolate each one, I gotta say there's like 50 settings, and that's quite difficult. So just you can hear there's no echo in this, but when I turn the video, it will be. But anyways, that's not the point, right? Like I want quality videos, but let's get into this. Happy holidays, by the way. And actually, you know what I'm gonna do first? And when I move back and forth between windows and I move my cursor, it screws up the audio. It's just this system. Let's look at when Jesus' birthday really is. I see a lot of contraindications here. One says December, another one says mid to late September, and another one says April. Remember, I thought you know really. I haven't personally looked and read into that a lot. Surprisingly, I haven't, but I don't think it's now. So just remember that about Christmas is about Jesus. Remember that every day is about Jesus. And don't think that because people celebrate Jesus on the 25th that it's satanic, as long as you celebrate Jesus Christ, right? And I'm well aware of what Jeremiah says. They cut down their evergreen trees, and they nail it down so it doesn't topple, and they deck it with silver and gold. So I want to get into something here. Actually, I should go to something first. Okay, so this is a video. This is another false prophet video. Okay, and I'm going to read just a short part of the Bible from Corinthians when this is done. And in this, this is Fight for Truth Ministries. I think he's Canadian, just like me. And so he gets down to the, like the hermeneutics of what Joyce Meyer says. And what's being discussed here is, when Peter and was in the boat, and Jesus came and told them to we've been fishing all night, but Jesus said just lower your nets, and they caught 153 fish. Well, Joyce Meyer, with her prosperity fake false preaching, uses her feelings and emotions to discern what the 153 meant. And so this is what it's about. I'm going to play it. I'm going to let you listen to it. And the 153, I'd never heard this before. And I enjoy telling you guys stuff you may not know. What did the 153 mean? What are those 150? So, you read the Bible, and usually those numbers mean something, right? Well, let's listen to what Joyce Meyer says. Let's listen to what Colin says.
We should ignore it, it's actually pretty compelling. You see, there are very distinct parallels between this. Way, if you hear any noise in the background, I apologize. We do have some ongoing construction in our neighborhood. This particular sermon was preached at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church. Some of what she says is good, and some is bad. The question is, how concerned should we be as Christians about the bad parts, and what should we do about it? In this video, we're striving to answer those questions as best we can. The issue, as you're about to see, really boils down to the method of biblical interpretation used by Joyce Meyer and people like her. So without any further ado, let's analyze this method and see if it's biblical. Watch this.
Now here comes another amazing lesson, and Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and he hauled the net to land full of fish, 153 of them, which, my goodness. I looked all over the place and nobody can give a reason for that 153.
Now for those who don't know, Joyce is talking about the story of John chapter 21. This is where Peter and some other disciples are fishing, but they catch nothing. Then Jesus, although they did not recognize him as such, instructs them to cast their nets on the other side of the boat. In doing so, they catch a multitude of large fish. John 21 verse 11 says, quote, "So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although they were so many, the net was not torn." End quote. Pay attention to that specific number, 153. Why not simply say about 150 fish? Why exactly this number? This question has plagued commentators for literally hundreds of years, and it's something that is certainly interesting enough to take a second look. But first, let's see what Joyce Meyer says about this little detail in her view. Watch this.
I looked all over the place and nobody can give a reason for that 153. The only thing that I found, and they're not even sure this is true.
And just to say right there, she says, everywhere I've looked. I wonder where she looked because, you know, you can look up on Google and you can type up, what does 153 fish mean? And type up hermeneutics, and it will give you some choices. So right away, it's kind of hard, and this is why you have to read the Bible, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to distinguish who's fake and who's not.
As somebody said that there was 153 different species of fish at the time, and part of the miracle was that there was one fish of each species. But I think this. I think if for no other reason, those
one fish of each species. Where did they get that? Where did she get that?
fish were counted, and it was recorded in the Bible just to show us what great attention God pays to every little detail in our life.
Everything she just said there, she's speaking for God. God did not say that.
So, according to Joyce Meyer, the reason there were 153 fish exactly is because God cares about every little detail of your life. It's all about you personally. Now, again, this is her interpretation, but I think it would be worthwhile to investigate some other interpretations from biblical commentators and lay out the evidence for them, and let's see which are most appealing. You decide and let us know in the comments what convinces you more. Now, Joyce also mentioned a view in passing that was popularized by Jerome. In this view, the 153 fish represented all the nations of the earth because they had caught one fish from every known species. And this might sound ridiculous at first. Of course, it's possible that the idea of one fish from every species is a bit of a stretch, but at the very least, the theory that this haul of fish represents the gospel going out to the world is not absurd. We shouldn't ignore it, it's actually pretty compelling. You see, there are very distinct parallels between this account in John 21 and what is recorded in Luke chapter 5. In Luke 5, we see almost the same events playing out, albeit in a different way. In verse 4, Jesus tells Peter to, quote, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." But then in verse 5, Peter responds saying, quote, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing, but at your word I will let down the nets." In other words, just like John 21, they had been unsuccessful with their fishing, and Jesus tells them to try again. This is much too similar to be a pure coincidence of no value. But look at what happens next, and there really is no doubt. Verse 6 says, quote, "And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking," end quote. Notice that last part about the breaking net, and how in John 21 verse 11 it says, quote, "And although there were so many fish, the net was not torn." In Luke 5, they write about the breaking nets, but in John 21, they specifically write about the nets not tearing. Again, this is not a coincidence. And also, again, notice that just like John chapter 21, they have just caught a huge number of fish. As a result, in verse 8, quote, "When Simon Peter saw this, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, 'Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord.'" Notice here that Simon Peter has repented as a result of this miracle. But then, look at what happens in verse 10, quote, "And Jesus said to Simon, 'Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men.'" So,
See what that is right there? So he knew it was a miracle. Obviously, they all knew it was a miracle. But 153. The very next thing that happens, so the nets didn't break. That's a symbol right there, right? And there were 153. So let's just say there was 153 nations in that net. The net didn't break. Then the next thing Jesus says is, "Come with me." The next thing, now you will be. So obviously that hermeneutics is the most likely to go with it. And I'd be very doubtful if Joyce never. Maybe she hadn't.
So you can clearly see that there is indeed a connection between Luke 5 and John 21. So let's go over some of these similarities. In both passages, Peter plays a large role. In both passages, they are unsuccessful at first. In both passages, Jesus gives them specific directions, and when they follow these directions, they catch a multitude of fish. But that's not all. In John chapter 21, we see the restoration of Peter after he denied Christ. Jesus asked Peter 3 times if he loves him in the passage, which parallels the 3 times that Peter denied him in Matthew 26. And in John 21 verse 17, quote, "Peter said to him," Jesus, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." So in both passages, Luke 5 and John 21, we see repentance and restoration for Peter as he is given a specific task from Jesus. Again, how could this be a coincidence? But then, look at what happens in John 21:19, quote, "And after saying this, he, Jesus, said to him, 'Follow me.'" Remember that word. And now look at the end of Luke 5, verse 11, which says, quote, "And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him," end quote. So in both of these miracles, Jesus reassures his followers, his disciples, of their ministry, and he shows them by his power that their ministry will be successful. Given the fact that Jesus says he will make these people fishers of men, it's not hard to see that there is indeed a symbolic meaning to the fish. There's a good case to be made that Jerome and many others were absolutely on the right track in thinking that the fish represented the conversion of the nations. In fact, it's hard to see how it could mean anything else. As the apostles of Christ go forward into the world, that is, the water, they will bring in converts, that is, fish. But the net will not tear as it did in Luke chapter 5. Some have said that this represents the church holding together despite the strain of new converts. Instead, the fish who are caught will be brought to shore. Specifically, they will be brought safely to Jesus, who was standing on the shore in John 21. Again, the parallels here are almost impossible to ignore, and it seems that this miracle is meant for encouragement to the disciples and assurance of Jesus' power, and also as a symbol of the success of the church, all at the same time. And by the way, we've only scratched the surface here. There's many, many more parallels, many more.
that's what I have for this. Isn't that something though? Just when you think you've learned, whatever it is, you could be reading this for 40 years but never think about that. Just like the other day when I was with my friend who's a Jehovah's Witness. He knows the Bible quite well, but I said to him, do you know what the 70 weeks? Like I'd ask my own. This is why I like hermeneutics, because I'd ask myself that question: why 70 weeks? Like we hear of the 70-week prophecy, I know what it is, but why 70 years? Where did the 70 years come from? And then it brought me all the way to the time after Solomon. Every single king for almost 500 years did not keep the seventh year Sabbath land rest. What is it? The slave goes free. The poor and the beast are allowed to eat off of the land for free. The thing, like a lot of Leviticus, Deuteronomy type laws and stuff, but they never kept it. So I love hermeneutics. I just want to read one thing to you. And by the way, it really bothers me with these audio problems. Like it's a really nice, I forget what it's called. It's a cam, but the speaker, when you have a speaker here and you have a speaker down there, you have to isolate it. So the only one that's working for me right now is this camera speaker. So you're hearing the audio, and the audio is making an echo up to here. And if I put on headphones, it's good, but my voice is real low. It's just like you try one thing, it does this, do another thing, it does that. But out of breath here, because I just want to say one thing to you, and then say happy holidays, because I'm not going to make another till after Christmas anyways. And by the way, I'm going to bring this screen. Let's see what it is. What is started really but was, and I was still at home. Like she would be watching Joyce Meyer and stuff. And these people are just false. They don't even they're just false. I'm going to read this whole thing. This is 2 Corinthians 11. This is verse 5, but I'll get to it. For I consider that I am not at all inferior to the most eminent apostles. Excuse me. Even though I'm uneducated, I'm not thoroughly manifested among you in all things. Did I commit sin in humbling myself that you might be exalted, because I preached the gospel of God to you free of charge? That's That's when I say people charging for it, right? There's a verse right there. I'm one of those people that doesn't like anyone charging anything about the gospel. I robbed other churches, taking wages from them to minister to you. And when I was present with you, I was at what I lacked, the brethren who came from Macedonia supplied. And in everything, I kept myself from being burdensome to you. Worry, I'll get to it. So I'll keep myself. As the truth of Christ is in me, no one shall stop me from this. Why? Because I don't love you? God knows. Where is it? Here it is. But what I will that I may cut off the opportunity from those who desire an opportunity to be regarded just as we are in the things of which they boast. For such, okay, and by the way, and my next video is about narcissists, okay, and the particular one I dealt with. With Joyce Meyer here, the same goes with my next video. It says, for such are false, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore, it's no great thing if his ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their works. So I say to you before I let you go, you know, when bad people do things, don't do anything back, you know, unless somehow you have to, when there's no choice in it. But God will recompense this on their own heads. Remember, God says, or Jesus says, leave room for me. Yeah, I will judge. I will, it'll be me who has revenge. So, anyway, happy holidays. Movie. That's a good Christmas movie. Thanks, guys.